Hello, everyone. Good afternoon, good morning. We're just giving everyone a couple of minutes to dial into the webinar. Good to see a lot of you here already. Just waiting 1 minute, give the latecomers a bit of a window to drop in at the right time. All right. I think we should be good to go. Good afternoon, everyone, and good morning for the audience dialing in from the Americas. It's great to see familiar faces from our customers. I see that there's also some new faces from other companies dialing in to hear more about the contents of this webinar. Great. So today we will spend the next 30-40 minutes discussing the current VUCA state of the vegetable seed breeding industry that we find ourselves in. Due to a multitude of factors, the industry became more volatile, uncertain, complex, and ambiguous. And we will walk through the factors contributing to this. So, of course, this VUCA state also brings opportunities as well. And we will therefore also shed light on the companies that are winning in these circumstances, and more importantly, why. This is a question that we get more and more talking with our members, with members of the industry in the recent past. So at the end of the session, we would like you to walk away with more insights into the market and how winning companies are setting themselves up to thrive in the current VUCA world, and as well as how market intelligence can support in this. So before we go into the content, let me just highlight that we will make a recording of this session so that you can review the contents at a later stage or even socialize it with others in your organization that might benefit from these insights. But first, let us start off with a brief introduction of ourselves as hosts and who we are as Insights and Valona. So my name is Tomas Poot. I am leading the customer success team in our organization. My team is responsible for working together with our customers, making sure that they get the most value out of our solutions and our services. I'm working together personally with a multitude of seed breeding companies and helping them to use market intelligence effectively in their organizations. With me is Maria Lawrence. Can I give the word to you shortly for a brief introduction, Maria?
Yeah, of course. So hi everyone, I'm Maria, and I'm a senior market intelligence analyst at Insights. And my team are responsible for kind of turning some of that data into insights that are usable for our clients, and thinking a bit more about the so what. So I've been working to prepare this presentation for today.
Thanks a lot, Maria. So for the attendees unaware of who we are as an organization, let me give a bit more context to this. So we are Insights and Valona, two intelligence companies that joined forces just recently in 2025. And as a combined company, we support building intelligence as an infrastructure. So organizations can monitor change early, stay ahead of disruption, and turn uncertainty into opportunity. We do this by combining actually two capabilities. On the one hand, structured quantitative intelligence, such as financials of players in the industry and performance signals that show what happened. And secondly, real-time market context and foresight, which is effectively the why behind shifts and early signals of what's coming next. To give a bit more perspective in this, Maria has prepared a comprehensive analysis of the seed breeding industry in this VUCA world. So before I like to give the word over to you, Maria, I would like to highlight that we very much welcome questions during this session. So don't hesitate to drop your questions in the chat so we can get back to these questions at the end of the session. So now, Maria, can I ask you to walk the audience through the current VUCA state of the industry and what the data shows on who is winning and why?
Yeah, for sure. Great. So the way that we're going to structure this session is basically to first give an overview of VUCA. So that's volatility, uncertainty, complexity, and ambiguity in the specifically vegetable seeds market. And for each of the 4 letters, so the VUCA, I built kind of 2 slides. So number 1 is explaining kind of what the impact on vegetable seeds is, and then given 3 company examples of how they're responding in 2026. And then secondly, I've added another slide with some kind of additional data or analysis to help either quantify that trend or highlight a strategic question that I've been thinking about. And the aim here is not just to describe what VUCA is, but to help it to use it kind of as a framework for understanding how people are kind of strengthening their competitive position. So looking at VUCA in vegetable seeds. So volatility is about shocks becoming kind of faster and broader. So in seeds, this is no longer just sort of weather and seasonality, but also climate instability, it's disease outbreaks, it's trade disruption, tariff realignment, and logistics. And what this is doing, of course, is creating these huge swings in both yield and price. For uncertainty, this is around the kind of rules of the game being harder to predict for seed companies. So this is, again, not only kind of uncertainty around future disease pressures, but differing IP enforcement, kind of gene editing classification, and trade negotiations. Moving on to complexity, this is about kind of the management of very, very highly interconnected systems. So strategy is now requiring kind of the seamless alignment of high value genetics with also global fluctuations in kind of biological seed treatments, digital phenotyping, and local needs. So there's this kind of this move towards one size fits all for globally not working anymore, but a need to balance this kind of global scale with that hyper local execution. And finally, moving to ambiguity. So this is around signals that can point in different directions and can be a little confusing. So to give some examples, trade protectionism can create risk, but it can also kind of stimulate local innovation. Premium crop and digital seeds may create new opportunities, but also maybe create a bit of sort of uncertainty and ambiguity around which kind of regions, formats, or business models will scale. So the reason that I think that VUCA is useful here is that it helps us to move beyond that kind of generic view of disruption. And it gives a structure to ask and think about what types of pressure the market's facing, and also how some of the seed companies are responding. So starting with volatility. So the key takeaway for volatility is that resilience even is becoming a core commercial differentiator as opposed to just kind of this technical breeding objective. So disease pressure and climate stress are changing kind of faster than growers can reliably plan around, which means that consistent performance relating to seasons, production systems, and disease conditions are much more valuable. And now we'll take you to these competitor examples. So starting with Rake Swan, they are moving from kind of single resistant varieties to crop level resistance planning. And this is evidence from the fact that they have 75 baby leaf spinach varieties, which are planned around different seasons and disease pressures and climate conditions. They have lots of different resistance packages. So an example there for downy mildew. But they also have some interesting kind of broader initiatives. So there's the hashtag Embrace Brassicas push, which is really kind of a strategic insurance policy for growers, which is designed to turn sort of these high-risk variables, so like labor shortages and erratic weather, into manageable kind of certainties, which are around resilience there. Moving on to Enza. So they also are turning resistance into portfolio-wide resistance strategy. So they note that they are scaling resistance across multiple different crops. So here I've picked out lettuce, tomato, leafy crops, and peppers, which are ones that they've spoken about already in 2026. And have a broad range of different resistance here. So everything from Nacionovia in lettuce to also having 18 high resistance 2BR-FV tomato varieties. So really been kind of investing in innovation there. And finally, Bayer here. So I picked out a slightly different angle here, which I thought was interesting. So they are really linking disease resistance with kind of production system reliability. So at Food Logistica this year, they discussed the BMOX priming and advanced resistance breeding. And this is focusing kind of on seed technology and early crop in establishment, which helps at the kind of very beginning of the seed sort of seed life. So making stronger seedlings, which have improved stress tolerance, healthier crops, and have fewer inputs. So focusing, on that kind of whole chain there. There we go. And to give an example of some data here, as it's been, a hot topic for many recently, I had a look into 2BR-FV. And I think this shows a really interesting story of how disease shock is really kind of reshaping or can quickly reshape breeding priorities, and also kind of maybe pull out some competitive advantages of companies. So starting with the graph on the left-hand side here, and this is looking at patent filings from 2019 to 2025. And here we can, of course, see that there is a huge spike when the disease became very prevalent. So in 2022 and 2023, we see specifically a high number of kind of breeding and variety patents, 39 in 2022. And that really kind of, I think, shows that how important it is that innovation is kind of in these pipelines. But I think an interesting signal for me there is then this shift towards trait mechanism patents. So we can see that it was 16 at 2023 and has kind of stayed quite stable. And that suggests that kind of vegetable seed companies are looking beyond kind of simple one-off variety claims, but really want to understand and be able to sell the kind of underlying mechanism, which can help with that kind of scalable and durable resistance solutions. And there were indeed winners in this data set. So the company with the largest number of patents out of this whole data set to the left was Rake Swan with 38, followed by Nunnans at 29. And we could see a list of kind of the biggest seed players in there. So interesting to see who's kind of acting fastest and whose kind of setup is allowing for that. Now on the right, I've just chosen a very small sample, but I think an interesting one nevertheless, of registration. So this is just Axia seed registrations in the Netherlands. And here we can see that from 2022 to 2024, we increased from 0 to 80% resistant tomato variations. So you can really see that kind of that innovation resulting in kind of commercial sales here. So overall, this kind of disease volatility in TBR-FV in this circumstance, but could be in any of the diseases, really shifts from this kind of long-term innovation to a high-speed kind of IP battleground, where the ability to be able to kind of convert those resistance traits into commercial registrations determines maybe who will have the biggest part of the pie kind of going forwards and can sell for these resistance traits. Next up, uncertainty. So uncertainty is really driving long-term stability to kind of high agility portfolio bets. So as I'm sure you're all aware, long breed cycles mean that we really need to think in the future. So perhaps thinking about investing before we know exactly what the future world looks like, we know what those future rules, traits, and customer needs are. And here's 3 companies that are kind of doing that. And these are kind of around sort of building in optionality, I think, into their portfolio. So starting with Bayer. So Bayer had made a portfolio bet in premium strawberries. So they recently entered the premium strawberry market with Bayer Solaro, which is the first commercial strawberry variety under their brand. And this followed a previous investment in 2023 of a breeding program. So we can really see that they are thinking about maybe which other segments to go into, which are high value, and doing that even though we don't necessarily know exactly what the labor needs or the disease pressure is in that, but they're really kind of hedging their bets there. Then Chia Tai, so this is a slightly different angle again. So this is around digital breeding. So they have partnered with BioBin Data Sciences to effectively kind of build in digital breeding into their company to be able to store, record, and process germplasm resourcing and breeding data. And the strategic value here is kind of making breeding pipelines more traceable, searchable, and decision ready. So in the face of uncertainty in the future, they kind of know what they're working with. And then finally is Syngenta. So Syngenta recently invested $130 million into a new biological sciences R&D center in the UK. And when this is operational in 2028, this will bring together kind of around 300 scientists across bioscience, across molecular research, and then analytics, digital, and AI, to help with building that kind of predictive R&D capability. So understanding really what that future crop protection needs are and how they can then go back and kind of think about what their strategy might be now. So looking to financial data, which is something we look to a lot at Insights, I thought it was interesting to have a look at R&D. And we can see that one of the kind of leading responses to R&D is to uncertainty is a massive kind of sustained commitment to R&D. And here on the left-hand side, I've done a graph on the R&D spend as a percentage of net sales. And this is like how they've reported. And we can see here that Rakeswan is really leading the pack here at around 30%, kind of consistently. And on the right-hand side are a few metrics and kind of recent signals that, to me, really show kind of what this investment is sort of enabling. So that is around kind of organizational capacity, pipeline output, and then also that kind of market-facing innovation. So we just draw some figures here that I pulled out. So firstly, the scale is pretty substantial. So around 41% of Rakeswan's workforce is in R&D. This has allowed the output that they wanted. So around 200 new varieties and patent applications in 2025 alone. So this was just from their 2025 annual report. And then finally is that they are sustaining this over a long time frame. So they've recently discussed how it's a 5 to 15 years sort of timeline for developing a new variety. So they're really kind of pacing their bets into the future here, and therefore need to be thinking about what's going to be working in that kind of future world. I then thought it was interesting to see the kind of strategic shift of Rakeswan as reading about articles from kind of Fruit Logistica and other kind of crops that they have been discussing. And to me, it seems that they're kind of not just breeding for the farmer, but really kind of managing uncertainty by focusing on the end consumer. And this is something I'm seeing across a lot of different vegetable seed companies. So they are, through kind of launching the Tati Yo-Yo and Sweet Palermo branches, they are really thinking about kind of creating that brand demand in the grocery aisle, and also really thinking about perhaps what consumers might need here. So snackable formats, they're really focusing on kind of that vitamin-rich variety, which is interesting given all these kind of health trends. And yeah, just thinking about how they might be appealing as well, not only to the farmers, but also the kind of end user. And the takeaway there is kind of that in this kind of uncertain market, companies are moving beyond being just a seed supplier to becoming a kind of value chain partner. Then next up is complexity. So it is evident that the kind of grower challenges are no longer just solved by genetics. So as grower challenges become kind of increasingly complicated and interconnected with disease pressures, with different regulation, crazy supply chains, different crop protection and consumer requirements, the kind of world that the seed companies are working in is increasingly interconnected, and there's this move towards kind of integrated crop solutions. So to give some examples here, we have Syngenta first and foremost. So they are addressing this complexity through enterprise systems. So an example here is the multi-year SAP partnership, which is really embedding AI very much into their kind of global operations. and helping with modernizing that process from kind of manufacturing all the way through to kind of grower-facing products and services. So really making sure that they are kind of tech and future-proofing their organization. For BASF then, BASF, this is Agricultural Solutions, have partnered with or acquired even, a biological pest control capability, which is ag biotech. And what this does is this helps with fighting pests, largely caterpillars, across a whole host of different crops. And this currently has capabilities in the US, Australia, and Brazil, but indeed could go expand going forwards, and therefore kind of shows that they are really thinking about all the different steps needed in their portfolio. And then I've also put this Sucata example in here because I think it's also interesting to think about how kind of complexity is also kind of managerial and operational. So Sucata recently promoted Justin Davies to COO of vegetables specifically in Sucata Seed America. And this role integrates R&D, supply chain, vegetable seed sales and marketing across the whole business. So to me, it kind of really signals how they're connecting innovation with that commercial execution. And I think that this is really interesting to track this workflow as we do these workforce changes to see how companies are kind of organizing around these different kind of vegetable regions and vegetable growth areas. So yeah, 3 quite different examples. But I think that it therefore shows that kind of winning companies are not only building sort of better, more resilient varieties, but also building kind of systems that connect innovation, that connect supply reliability, that connect data and kind of crop protection, and also are thinking about commercial execution. And I've drawn a Panora here as an example, and I'm not going to explain Panora to you as an audience because I'm sure many of you know the details even better than I do. But I think it poses a really interesting question for me on that's kind of the sector's seeing, and that is that as we see from the kind of platform scale on the left-hand side, as vegetable seed markets are becoming more complex and companies need perhaps more breadth, they are kind of creating platforms which allow for broader crop and regional coverage. They allow for shared R&D and genetic resources. There is potentially stronger commercial reach of these, have more coordinated customer access, and also operational leverage. And Panora is a good example of that. So as I've put in some figures there, it's 3 seed companies which are Mitsui backed across 10 countries and over 250 employees. However, that right-hand side that I've put there on that specialist step is, just as an important question. So, or a kind of equation, I guess. So as vegetable seeds remain like highly crop specific and highly local, there are some various different factors that also need to be taken into account and really kind of harnessed in these platform collaborations. So those include crop-specific breeding expertise. They include local grower and retailer knowledge, which especially when you're bringing together different kind of organizations, provide kind of bespoke ideas. We've got speed and entrepreneurial focus with kind of smaller specific companies, and then also specialist crop and consumer trust. So for me here, there's this kind of strategic question that is not only whether integration creates more scale, which we know that it does, but whether these platforms can actually create the reach and coordination that's needed without diluting on that specialist depth that vegetable seed companies really, really rely on. And, this is not only a Panora question. So we're seeing similar kind of structural logic and moves in other places. So there's sharpening and separating agricultural platforms. We're seeing BASF with their IPO. We're seeing Lima Grain have created LVS as a legal entity. We are seeing selective kind of M&A of Sucata. And, you can really see that there's a lot of strategic thinking of these companies. And I think that this is what's really kind of important in complexity. So the market is kind of shifting towards these broader platforms. But to me, the winners are the ones that are really still staying true to these specialist crops and kind of know who they are and where their kind of strong relationships are. And I think it'll be really interesting to kind of, track whether these platforms and these moves that I've just discussed, both with Panora and others, if they actually result or how they result in stronger innovation output, commercial reach, and also kind of customer relevance over time going forwards. And finally, bringing you to my last VUCA. So ambiguity is kind of encouraging customers to test new regions, specialty crops, and premium formats. And this is because there are so many signals, and early market signals can be very noisy. And it's not always clear which kind of regions or crops or sort of premium formats are working and will scale. So a bit similar to a previous slide, companies are creating kind of optionality. So testing new regions, perhaps buying exposure to specialty crops, and also launching with kind of those premium formats. And to give some examples here, we'll start with East-West. So East-West, as they have been throughout the years, are betting on emerging vegetable markets with kind of attractive demand and variable local needs. So there's been a lot in the news around activity across a whole host of kind of emerging markets, so Bangladesh, Uganda, Tanzania, and the Philippines, which reinforces that they are really focusing on those regions and partnering with kind of local organizations to make sure that their solutions and the execution of those is very localized. They also have been translating that into specific varieties and grower programs. And one example here is the Safi pumpkin in Tanzania. Moving then on to the Toza acquisition. So this, I think, represents like a different type of ambiguity response, which is that kind of the Duda and G group are kind of effectively buying upstream sort of genetic diversity. So by owning Toza that specialize in crops like kale and parsnips and leeks, they're ensuring that they kind of have a seat at the table when we don't really know which way the consumer tastes and trends and health regulations are going to swing in 2030s. But they're really kind of buying that from the beginning so that they have that on their kind of portfolio. And final example here is Enza. So this is just an example to show one of their premium formats that they are really evolving for retail and consumer demand. So they've been promoting these kind of seedless mini pointed peppers, which is a product that can be grown in both kind of North and Southern Europe all year round, but also crucially is something that is kind of convenient, is premium, and is really thinking again about the end consumer there and what they might want. So yeah, the common thread here to me is kind of optionality, and under kind of ambiguity, companies are not only sort of optimizing their existing portfolios, but they are also testing where growth might occur. So that here, for example, is in the types of products, but also the regions, and also could be the format. And last slide of this section here then is around the ambiguity is creating strategic divergence. So we're seeing a split really in how companies are betting on the future. And there is no one same or right global footprint. It's just different based on kind of different strategies. And I've pulled out what I think is a few kind of different organizations here with regards to their regional net sales. And I'll just talk to each pretty briefly. So Sakata, who are a global multi-region platform, have from the most recent reporting year to 2 years back achieved 20% growth. And Asia is very much still its base, but they've seen other regions really kind of skyrocket. So the Americas in this period jumped 33%, and other regions soared 47%, showing that they're really kind of balancing the portfolio across hemispheres. And we can see that again with some of their recent acquisitions and their focus on specific types of crop. Moving then on to Enza. So Enza, a Dutch-based but very balanced international specialist. So their revenue is kind of split as they report it, kind of 50-50 between Europe and rest of the world, with a bit more of a focus on Europe in the kind of 2 years prior to their most recent reporting year, but it's still pretty even and really still focusing on the kind of international strategy. Similarly, Espito is a kind of Europe-led international expander, so from Spain, and is the fastest grower of these four. So from 101 to 130 in terms of percentage, so that's 29% between the 2 years. And they are really successfully kind of pushing beyond their sort of Mediterranean roots, with their outside revenue growing 37% to reach nearly, almost half their global business in 2024. So it'll be interesting to see what their kind of next moves are there, if it's in Europe or outside. And then finally, East West Seed. So I've just touched on how they are kind of a emerging market specialist. And interesting to see here, their growth was slightly lower between these 2 years, so 13%. But Southeast Asia has very much still remained their kind of growth engine. It's both the darker blue colours. But having said that, the other regions are also showing that they are starting to perhaps think about and scale their business outside of those regions as well. So the strategic takeaway here for me is that it's not just about growth, it's about kind of risk exposure. And for every company, they are kind of deciding or trying to decide whether to master one region, whether to be present in all, or to have kind of a bit of a mix of a strategy perhaps. And seeing how the kind of global trade and geopolitics and climate rules might impact that kind of decision. So putting together these VUCA examples, the pattern is that companies aren't all responding in the same way, and each have, of course, different strategies, and different pressures require different responses. But when I was thinking about this, I thought there are kind of some key themes that really stand out to me, and strategic moves that I can see kind of across the different sort of breadth of vegetable seed players, and I'll talk to those quickly now. So for volatility, companies are really strengthening resilience through disease resistance, through stress tolerance, and ensuring more reliable crop performance. For uncertainty, they are really accelerating innovation. So they're investing kind of ahead of that clear demand, and using things like digital breeding and predictive R&D to understand what future trade needs might be, and how they can really ensure that they are impacting or tweaking their strategy now to ensure that they are going to meet those future needs. For complexity, there's a lot of building around these kind of integrated crop solutions. So that's bringing together kind of seed, biologicals, and crop protection. But also, as we saw in the kind of Sakata example, integrating that operating model and maybe thinking about the most kind of agile ways to live in this kind of complex, interconnected world. For ambiguity, they are diversifying growth bets across different regions, across specialty crops and premium formats, and very much this as opposed to assuming that kind of one future growth pool will dominate and that there will be one strategy needed for every single region and every single crop. There's like an acknowledgement and a drive towards this diversification. And then finally, one cross-cutting theme that I thought would be crucial to add here is that they are trying to assess capabilities faster. So we are seeing selected M&A, we're seeing partnerships, and kind of the bring together of platforms, and also discussions and conversations around how to navigate this VUCA world. So the previous slide showed the capabilities that companies are needing to win in a VUCA market. I thought I'd just show this slide to show kind of a financial reality check of this. So these are some of the biggest vegetable seed companies. You can see that they are all growing, which is great news. But the margin picture is kind of slightly more uneven. I'll just pick out a few examples here. So with Rake Swan, for example, we can see that they've grown strongly to 684 million in 2025. And that EBIT margin has actually squeezed slightly, perhaps reflecting R&D investment, as we've kind of previously discussed, that 30%. Bayer, of course, stand out as a strong example of profitable growth here. So they're the kind of market leaders in EBIT here at 20% in 2025. It was around 23 and 24, so really, really strong margins here. And that's also alongside their kind of strong growth. So from 330 million in 2021 to 482 million in 2025. And also we've mentioned a few times Sucata here. As you can see, there are some blank spaces because they don't report at the vegetable seed level, but the Sucata group level EBIT is 13%. So really kind of in the middle of that benchmark there, and really strong, and can show how some of these strategies that we've spoken about are really impacting or helping companies to have those resilient margins here. So yeah, the kind of overall message here is that we need to combine both kind of strong growth, margin resilience, and capacity to keep investing. And finally, is that I'm just going to bring this back to foresight. So the VUCA slides that I've shown hopefully show that there are lots and lots of signals, and there's lots of data. And these are scattered across technology, regulation, sustainability, economics, politics, etc. And we are working with a radar now, which helps to turn some of these kind of news articles and strategies that we're collecting to help distinguish kind of what is more important over the near term, long term, medium term, including things around like tech acceleration, differing regulations and IPs in different countries, and sustainability and biological systems. And hoping that that really helps to identify what are real trends to kind of keep track of, see what's emerging, what's moving closer, and really what companies should be monitoring before it becomes obvious. And this is where we really help, as a kind of A Insights, help clients to sort of anticipate change and act with more sort of confidence before we see the kind of news articles happening here and now. So really thinking about that future. Yeah, before handing over to Thomas, feel free to click below to see some work that the team here has done on the impact of the Middle East crisis for seeds specifically across the short, medium, and long term. If you are watching this on a recording, you can email Thomas there. His email's right there. So yeah, feel free to click and ask any questions relating to that. I'll hand over you to now, Thomas.
Perfect. Thanks so much, Maria. That was super insightful. I've already seen some questions that popped up in the chat. So let's get into those questions shortly. But before we do, let me just take a short minute to share the importance of organizing your organizations with the right market intelligence practices to ensure that you can stay on top of an industry that shifted so much actually from a long-term steady state, if you will, to this VUCA state. So as we see more often than we want, companies in the vegetable seed industry are taking action only after a change is in effect. And this oftentimes leads to an analysis sprint, bringing context to this change in a very rushed, ad hoc fashion. This typically then leads to fewer options considered and worst of all, a very short decision window. At the same time, winning companies, they truly separate themselves by embedding continuous market intelligence into decision making. We see that they don't wait for disruption. They monitor the early signals, they run scenarios, challenge assumptions, and align their strategy in an early stage. They seem to filter out noise better and focus really on what truly matters. And at A Insights Valona, that's what we enable our customers to do, to bring structure, ongoing market intelligence that strengthens these foresights and supports better and faster decision making. We believe and see that winning today is not so much about surviving the shocks that are happening in the market, but it's really about seeing what's coming and acting before the others, meaning competitors, do. So building this proactive market intelligence infrastructure, we really see that this is a team effort together with our customers. And this overview actually outlines how A Insights and Valona support in this shared exercise. So on the left side here in the screen, you see the breadth of inputs that feed into MI technology. And this MI technology structures and analyzes this raw input into the outputs on the right-hand side. So these can be from trend radars and AI search analyses to actual leadership briefings that are ready for strategic decision making. To give a bit more context to this all, here you see how these solutions are used for proactive market intelligence flows. So this really starts with identifying developments and trends. This can be done through personalized radars and giving market insights, or tracking trend signals, or even synthesizing the news from the more than 200,000 trusted news sources that we have access to. These trends are then analyzed, which is the second phase, through the rich company profiles that we provide, the AI-assisted analyses, but also our proprietary global bottom-up market-size data set, which also gives regional perspectives into the regional market size. And this finally then moves into a leadership brief or a strategic session with the data processed actually into actionable insights into the market. Hopefully, this gives you a bit of a good perspective into sorry, I'm just going a bit further into the slides. Hopefully, this gives you a bit of a good perspective in the instruments that we use to support leveraging market intelligence to win in this ever more VUCA world. I want to highlight for the ones that are maybe attending the ISF World Seed Conference next week in Lisbon. We will be there with a stand, and we will also be looking forward to show you there a lot more of our solutions and how we can support your MI function. Hopefully, this was very insightful, and also gives a bit of context into how you can prepare using MI in this VUCA world. I would suggest to use the rest of the time we have left for the questions that have been asked in the chat. So maybe Maria, something for you to answer. I'm going a bit into the questions now that have been asked. Let me see if there's anything here. I can see an overview. So what type of financial data do we track is a question that someone answered. You shared a bit of financials, of course, but can you shed a bit more light into the sources of these financial data, Maria?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, of course. So we use all publicly accessible data on our platform, and that is predominantly from annual reports. Well, actually solely from annual reports, all the financial stuff. So we will use for our kind of subset of vegetable companies. We have a great team doing a bit of kind of cleaning of the data and uploading onto for every year to ensure that it's all kind of comparable among the different seed companies. We also do have every quarter we do earnings update summaries. So we look at quarterly earnings and we'll kind of synthesize those, have a think about some kind of signals in the market for that quarter, and have a look into the detail of which other companies report. And then we also supplement that with kind of news and qualitative stuff, and use things like trade intel and other data sources in projects.
Great, thanks. I see another question on pricing. So if we also support with kind of pricing questions, do we have data on pricing of players in the market?
So we don't help with pricing strategy. What we do is we will look at trade intel. We have access to trade intel to have a look at. We can look at pricing in that, but to be honest, the data can be a bit sort of blurry. Or not complete. So we'll use that to maybe suggest who's paying in the market, because we can see kind of seed producers and buyers. We can do kind of a bit of an overview of what type of prices and what type of products they're selling, and also kind of map some of those trade flows. And And we also sometimes have a look at kind of anything that's publicly accessible on kind of the retailer side, but we don't explicitly help with pricing strategy.
Yeah, maybe to shed a bit more light on that pricing and that trade information we use. In some cases, bill of lading data where there is prices labeled, so that we can use to enrich kind of the pricing intelligence. Great. I think we're at the end of the time that we have for this session. Before we leave you all, again, I would like to reiterate that we are there in Lisbon next week during the World Seed Conference. I know that most of our customers will be there. Hopefully, also the other people dialing in to this call today will be there. Feel free to scan the QR code in the screen right now to schedule a meeting with us. And hopefully see you there and have a drink at our stand and discuss in a lot more detail on what we have to offer to support you, and perhaps regarding any other questions that you have on this VUCA world or competition market developments. I would like to close off by thanking you for your time and your attention on this. As mentioned, the recording has been made and will be sent out to you. And I'd be happy to connect with everyone attending today at a later stage. Thank you very much, and have a wonderful rest of your day.
Thanks, everyone.